Let's move on then to agenda item 4. This is Law and Licensing Committee Report. Chair Carey.
Thank you, Chair. The first item on the agenda out of the committee is 4.2. This is amendments to board bylaws, Article 4, and the motion for the board is that the board approve the board bylaws, Article 4, member ethics, draft 3, which was passed out of committee.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board approve the board bylaws, Article 4, member ethics, draft 3. I've got a motion from Vice Chair Wood. Vice Chair Bollinger, my apologies.
Thank you, Chair. And if we can bring my motion up on the board, and I will make the motion, and then on a second, I'd like to speak to it. I'd like to make a motion that the board reinstate lines 70 through 71 in draft 3.
And can we jump back to the lines? 70 through 71. So the motion is to reinstate lines 70 and 71 of draft 3. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I know we discussed this in committee, and we discussed that maybe this could go into a different bylaw, but I've spent some time looking at different bylaws, and because this specifically talks about our member expression and when we're speaking out in public, it's really important that we're clear to our public, because you guys have heard me say this before, that clear is kind. So I do believe that it is important for us to make sure that we honor the will of the board once that vote is taken. And so I would suggest that this be reinstated to make sure that we are all clear on that, not just within our board, but also to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Boggess to this motion or other?
Yeah, I have a motion, but I would love to speak on this
Sure.
too. So I would just speak against this. I think that when the board takes a position, it's archived, it's in our minutes, and it's no secret that things pass 7 to 8, sometimes 10 to 5, and we should be able to issue a dissenting voice without fear of being hauled through some sort of kangaroo court tribunal because we spoke in opposition of the official position of the board. And so I would just speak against this motion. I think there's a better space for that. And I think it prevents our agency from being turned into a place where people play out their political drama in our space. And we need to put an end to that. We have work to do. We need to focus on students. And I think this just creates fertile soil for chaos to continue. Thank you.
Member Earl?
This is maybe a question for one of our AAGs, but putting this in, does this prohibit an individual board member from speaking against something in public? They have to just always speak whatever the board had said, or does it, I'm just wondering if it hinders that, or if this is just an acknowledgement that the board, when they pass something, it is actually the position of the board. Just curious what your opinion is on that.
AAG Beal?
Sure. I would say it's not a prohibition. It's not that they can't say something else. It's just that that's the board's official position. So I think in a public setting, I mean, if you're speaking opposingly, you might want to make that clear. Like, the board voted X. My personal opinion is Y. But
Okay,
it doesn't.
so it doesn't prohibit that then.
Correct.
Okay.
Member, I'm going to go, Member Boggess, since you spoke, I'm going to go to Member Carey and then come back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I supported the removal of this language because I just thought it was unnecessary. I think when the board votes, like, that's the official position of the board. So I don't think it does anything other than state the obvious. But based on what AAG Beal just said, now I'm not so sure, because I don't see a requirement here or suggestion that says we have to note the official position of the board in our remarks. So I want to make clear that that is not suggested here. That was you may want to do this, and, well, equally, you may not want to do this. But does this provision in this bylaw in any way suggest or require that kind of language when we're talking about agreement or disagreement with the board policy?
So I think that would be found in the next provision, line 73 through 76, when speaking in a public forum in which there's a reasonable expectation that a member is speaking on behalf of the board. Individual members shall state at the outset of their comments or statements about public education issues that their comments reflect their individual positions. So I think that would kind of cover the question you were asking and when that distinction would be required of you.
Okay, in that case, I was going to favor the motion, but now I have to speak again. I don't read it that way. I just see the next provision being, yeah, this is my opinion. But for me then to have to say, but the board's official position is X, I look at that as crossing over into compelled speech and not a fan of that. Thank you.
Okay, I've got member Bogus, member Booth, member Davis.
I'm sorry, I'm actually in the queue for a motion.
Okay, go ahead and,
I did not make that clear. I will apologize.
well, go ahead and turn your light off and I'll put you on there. Okay, member Booth.
With 16 years on a local board and having just come back from our local board convention, leadership convention in Bryce Canyon this last weekend, it's very clear at the local level among local board members that there are differences of opinion and that our work as a board or as a local board member is to speak up and represent our constituents, the parents that we represent that voted us into that position. However, there is a need to unify once the decision has been made. And not that we can't continue through appropriate channels to try to make changes. That's why we're there. But if a decision is made at the local level or at the state level, I feel good about nodding, giving a nod to this was the decision of the board. And I'm going to move forward supporting that decision until such time as we can make changes that I feel are important. And I think at the local board level, that is their instruction. That is what they are practicing. And that is in their handbook for good board members and for the activities that they're involved in. And I would think that this line would be an important nod to the decades of good boardsmanship that have been presented by the USBA and those leaders of those local boards.
Member Reel.
Thank you, Chair. As someone who more often than not has opposing viewpoints than what the board ends up voting on, I'm in support of this. I think that it just puts the responsibility on us to be clear about when we're making public statements that what the will of the board is and what our opinion is so that we can represent our constituents and that we can also still have respect for how the board voted. So I vote in favor. I'm in favor of this rule as it is.
Thank you. I'm gonna speak just quickly. I see some lights, but I often think about what happens when I'm gone, and I'm sure it will be great things. But I look at this right here, and I don't want me or Vice Chair Wood or Vice Chair Bollinger to ever go before a body and speak against or the other way of what the direction of the board was. I don't want that. I do want a little bit of limitations. So I am going to vote for this. Now, again, as we've heard, this doesn't say that you can't speak your mind. It doesn't constrict that at all. But it does say this is the direction of the board. Now, if you speak your mind in opposition, maybe you'll get some feedback and make some more changes. That's fine. But I am trying to be cautious of the future, not the now. So I'm going to vote. I am currently in favor of this, speaking in favor of this motion. Member Earl.
I know I've already spoken, but now I'm even more confused because everybody seems to think that putting that in there means that you have to identify the official position of the board. No, it's everybody is. it's sounding that way.
your own opinion as the
There's the confusion there, and I think that when the board, realizing now that when the board does take a position,
If I go
Yeah.
and if I may answer your question,
Yeah.
if I go to what AAG Beal referred to in lines 73,
Yep,
74,
I understand that, but it's this piece we're putting in that everybody's been speaking to that now is, my initial response was, is I think, yeah, and maybe that's the point, that it's pretty clear that it is, that when we vote on something, it's the position of the board. But if putting that back in creates this confusion that now you've got to identify that, and you know that there's, to me, I don't know. I was leaning towards it at first, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm a little bit conflicted here now.
yeah, may I respond with my understanding, and if I'm wrong, AAG Beal, correct me, please. But the included language, I think, covers this, because in the very end of it on 74, it says that expectation that a member is speaking on behalf of the board. So if you're invited to speak on behalf of the board, you probably should go with what the board has voted on, rather than taking liberties on behalf of the board as yourself. AAG Beal?
Yeah, so I mean, with or without this piece, that is a fact, right? Like once the board has voted on an issue, the vote is the official position of the board. Like that exists, whether that statement is there or not. That is true. I think it just, in that position, like helps clarify your bylaws a little bit. But so it's not that you have to state like this is the board's position. It's just if you're in a place where there's an expectation that you're speaking on behalf of the board, you're clarifying you're speaking your opinion. You don't have to state what the board's opinion is or the board's position, I suppose, to clarify. You just have to state that you're speaking your opinion.
Thank you. Member Davis?
Oh, I just, I often will say this is the official position of the board, whether it's one I agree with or not, but that's my choice. I don't feel like I'm compelled to do that in this. But also if I'm speaking at the Capitol or something and I haven't been invited to speak on behalf of the board by our leadership, then I usually start my comments by saying I'm here as a private citizen. And that's my choice. I don't feel like any of this compels me to do any of these things. This says, look, when the board votes, that's the official position. And that is the reality. And so I would be supportive. I don't feel that this compels me every time I go speak somewhere to say, the board officially voted this, and this. But if someone asks, I certainly will tell the truth and say, this was the official position on that issue you're asking about, as voted on by the board.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're about ready to vote. The motion before the board is to reinstate lines 70 through 71 in draft 3. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, so that motion passes. 8 in favor, 7 opposed. Those opposed being Member Kelly, Member Brenton, Member Green, Member Carey, Member Hall, Member Bogus, and Member Earl. Okay, Member Bogus.
I would like to amend line 89 and 90 and strike the language or for conduct inconsistent with the duties of office. And just for after this, we've got some punctuation errors there, and we would need to move the or to prior to the word duly.
So your motion, Member Bogus, is to...
I
What are the-
apologize. The line numbers are 89 and 90. Chair, I just answered him. I apologize.
You're good. Let's just make sure we get your motion. He's trying to help get the motion right, and I want to make sure it's correct on the screen as well.
Yep, that would be correct.
So the motion is that the board strike or for conduct inconsistent with the duties of the office from lines 89 and 90. Do we have a second? We have a second. Member Bogus?
Okay, so I think this just creates fertile soil for abuse for pedantic things. And I'll just give a few examples to the board. So let's say, for example, a sitting member of this board off chance has a diagnosis of predementia or dementia, and they are acting in a capacity of a policymaker. Are we really going to make it our business to debate that and censure them? Because I would call that conduct inconsistent with the duties of office. Let's just say, for example, a board member, whether meaningful or not, accosts a member of our staff. Is that conduct inconsistent with the duties of this office? And I just think that if we're going to put this in here, we need to mean it and we need to own it, because I could think of probably, and I'm not joking, in the past month, 50 things that I could bring before this board in executive session that I personally believe is conduct inconsistent with the duties of this office. And I think if we're going to leave it in there, we need to be prepared for what it sets before us, which is a train of chaos and dysfunction. Either that, or we need to hold ourselves to a much higher standard and define exactly what conduct consistent with the duties of this office is. So I would just offer that we need to take it out or provide a definition, because right now I think we're just setting ourselves up for chaos, creating our agency, adjudicating everybody's behavior, and it's just weird to me. I just don't think it's appropriate.
So the motion before the board is that the board strike "or for conduct inconsistent with the duties of the office" from lines 89 through 90. Let's go ahead and vote. That's a request to see it in the document. Yep, there you go. Okay, let's go ahead and get voting. Voting is open. Okay, that fails. 11 against, 4 in favor. Those in favor being Member Hall, Member Bogus, Member Green, and Member Kelly. The motion before us then is that the board approve the board bylaws, Article 4, Member Ethics, Draft 3, as amended. Let's go ahead and vote. Voting is open. That passes. 11 in favor, 4 against. Those in opposition being Member Hall, Member Bogus, Vice Chair Wood, and Member Green. Chair Carey.
Thank you, Chair. The next item before the board is 4.3 R277-305 School Leadership License Areas of Concentration and Programs. The motion before the board is that the board approve R277-305 School Leadership License Areas of Concentration and Programs, Draft 1 on second and final reading, and this motion passed unanimously out of law and licensing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The motion then is that the board approve R277-305 School Leadership License Areas of Concentration and Programs, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Amendments. Director Rasmussen, prepared them. The first one would be that the board insert after line 77 as subsections the following language: acting with integrity, fairness, and ethical behavior, and documenting and reporting lapses consistent with federal, state, and local law and policy. And I do believe I have an extra "and" in there. We can take that out now if it's necessary. And the second one would be ensuring that all subordinates comply with Rule R277217 and the LEA's Code of Conduct adopted consistent with Rule R277322. And that is my first motion, sir.
The motion has been stated. Do we have a second? We have a second. Member Bogus?
I think if we look exactly at line 77, it reads, it starts at 76, understanding the laws and legal ramifications surrounding school leadership decisions and practices. And I apologize, I lost the motion. Oh, thank you. And so it just fits right underneath there to ensure that we have training in there and that we are calling this out so that people understand what that actually looks like in practice and real time. Thank you.
For clarity, Member Bogus, is this a subsection under Roman numeral 9, or is this Roman numeral 10, Roman numeral 11 that pushes, or, yeah.
For clarity, I envisioned it as a subsection under the little 9. That does not mean that's how it has to be, which I believe is why it has been framed up with the little things there. If we want to make it a 10 and 11, that's the will of the body. I viewed it as a subsection of 9.
Thank you for that clarity and understanding. So the motion before the board is that the board insert after line 77, acting with integrity, fairness, and ethical behavior, and documenting and reporting lapses consistent with federal, state, and local law and policy. Ensuring that subordinates comply with Rule R277-217 and LEA Codes of Conduct adopted consistent with Rule R277-322. Member Brinton.
Chair, could I just ask a clarifying question, maybe to Member Bogus or Ben Rasmussen, to just see, is there a lapse where this is not happening? And is this a needed addition to clarify, or would it be helpful to clarify this?
To the maker of the motion, please.
Yeah, there's lots of instances where this is not happening. I don't know that it's appropriate to vomit them onto the public record, but it's overwhelming where this is a problem.
The public does not want you to vomit anything, so I'll speak for them. I've got Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And this maybe can be a clarifying question to, I think, is it Dr. Height? That's the one that's helped us with this. So my understanding is that the purpose of this policy is to basically outline what's supposed to be taught in our leadership area concentration programs. So I guess that would be my question is, what would that look like in expectations by adding these lines to our university programs?
That's directed towards Dr. Height, if you will, please.
Yeah, and if I may, I'm just curious to know how the ensuring some more subordinates comply, what that would look like as far as an expectation in a program.
Thank you, Chair. Malia Hyatt, Executive Coordinator of Educator Licensing. So the purpose of this rule is to define what leadership candidates need to demonstrate in their preparation program. And so the lead-in for this section is in line 57, that it requires demonstration of competency in. And so with this language, it would require anybody who is enrolled in a school leadership preparation program to become a school administrator to demonstrate these two things. I don't know how you could ensure that there are subordinates for somebody who's in a preparation program who isn't necessarily working in the role as a leader at the time.
Member Carey.
If I may, to Dr. Height. So, Dr. Height, I guess my question is, I understand that they don't know if they're going to have subordinates or not, but you could certainly put that into a program that, in this type of relationship, you understand that you would have to comply with all applicable rules.
Yes, thank you. So I believe that that is encapsulated within line 76 and 77, that our candidates understand the laws and legal ramifications around school leadership.
If I may, Chair, one more. And Dr. Hyde, and that really goes to my next question, which is the language here already encapsulated in other parts of the rule? And if the answer is yes, or other rules, if the answer is yes, then I think it's redundant. If the answer is no, then maybe this is something we would want to incorporate into that leadership training framework.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would think that this is absolutely included under our ethical standards for all licensed educators, including school leaders.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. So this rule is, as I understand it, so Director Height, yeah? Executive Coordinator Height. I correct me if I'm wrong, but this is to prepare for licensure in the state of Utah. And it's not meant, I mean, you can transfer that license across state lines, but when we have preparation programs in this state, it's meant to lead to a Utah licensure. And we have a crisis in this state, understanding our 277, 217. We have, I mean, it's no secret. We sit in here and we adjudicate UPAC every month. We have a crisis in this state with codes of conduct and conduct going on in our schools. And I absolutely don't think that it's included in here because it's not happening inside our school walls and in our institutions. That's not a broad brush statement, but there's enough of a problem that it's not being addressed in a manner that causes it to play out on the front lines with fidelity. And if it's not playing out on the front lines with fidelity, it needs to be addressed in our preparation programs.
Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the board insert after line 77, acting with integrity, fairness, and ethical behavior, and documenting and reporting lapses consistent with federal, state, and local law and policy. Ensuring that subordinates comply with Rule R277-217 and LEA codes of conduct adopted consistent with Rule R277-322. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That motion fails. 10 against, 5 in favor. Those in favor, Member Kelly, Member Hall, Member Bogus, Member Brinton, Member Green. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. I have a second motion that the board insert the following after line 69, and it would read the following. I believe you've highlighted too much, whoever highlighted that. Understanding parents' rights, consent, requests, and reasonable accommodations under Utah Code, including Section 53G-6-803 and Board Rule.
Okay. Which one am I looking at?
The one highlighted in blue, sir.
Okay. So the motion then is that the board insert after line 69, understanding parent rights, consent, requests, and reasonable accommodations under Utah Code, including Section 53G-6-803 and Board Rule. Do we have a second? Member Bogus.
Thank you. I think this kind of goes without stating, considering the calls we get from our constituents. I thought about adding the 205 code in here, which is the right of conscience code, but I think that more encompassing would be understanding parental rights, consent, and reasonable accommodations. I think it speaks for itself, but I think that there's, if you look at lines 68 and 69, it says communicating effectively with parents, community groups, staff, and students. But it goes so much further than that when you're an administrator of a school. There's so much more that you need to understand and help lead your staff in when it comes to interfacing with parents. And these things, I believe, are a good step in the right direction to help our administrators interface better with the people they serve. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion before the board then is that the board insert after line 69, understanding parent rights, consent requests, and reasonable accommodations under Utah Code, including section 53G-6-803 and board rule. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That rule or that motion passes 10 in favor, 5 in opposition. Those opposed being Member Booth, Member Carey, Member Hymas, Member Reel, and Member Lear. Member Bogus.
I apologize. Thank you, sir. I move that the board, I apologize that I have a weak tongue this morning, that the board insert after line 84, understanding internal control systems.
The motion before the board is that the board insert after line 84, understanding internal control systems. Do we have a second? It's been seconded. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. So I think if we look at the things we address here in this room, a lot of them manifest because our administrative populace within the state of Utah does not seem to understand internal control systems and what they mean. And I believe as a board member, it's my conviction that if there was a better understanding of internal control systems, we would not be putting people on caps or monitoring in the way that we are, because internal control systems would prevent those things from happening. And I think it's something that our administrators need to know. I think it needs to be added here so that it can be added to those preparation programs and raise the bar, if you will, on the competencies and understandings of the administrators entering the field.
Member Earl.
Yeah, I don't know if Malia can kind of look at this, but I'm wondering if internal controls is meaning it's part of that broader management operations. I guess that's though connecting management operations, but just wondering if we're seeing it there already, or if there's a duplication or something that needs to happen. So,
Dr. Height.
I think it certainly falls under that umbrella, but is maybe not explicitly attended to in all programs. One thing I will add is that we're currently in the process of revising our school leadership standards for preparation to kind of attend to some of these issues.
Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the board insert after line 84, understanding internal control systems. Seeing no lights, let's vote. That motion passes 10 in favor, 5 opposed. Those opposed being Member Booth, Member Kelly, Member Reel, Member Hymas, and Member Lear. Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. I move that the board insert after line 134 the following language. I'm sorry, could you scroll for me, please? Thank you, I appreciate that. Supervising subordinates and ensuring compliance and alignment with federal, state, local law and policy through evaluation and oversight. Assigning responsibilities to staff based on appropriate licensure, endorsements, and demonstrated competencies. Demonstrating and addressing allegations or concerns in a timely manner consistent with applicable law and policy. And understanding and implementing internal control systems, data systems, including analysis, reliability, and retention, budgeting, and expanding funds, and school safety drills.
The motion has been stated and is on the screen. Do we have a second? Thank you. It's been seconded. Member Bogus?
I think this one speaks for itself. These are a number of the areas where we're seeing ongoing concerns. In particular, our legislature takes it up because it's not happening here and it's not happening locally. And if those two things are occurring, we need to make certain that we're addressing them in our preparation program so that we can mitigate the chaos that expends itself into our front lines, so that we don't have to centralize and legislate from a centralized manner. And I'm not speaking, I just repeated myself, but we don't want to centralize power. And in order to prevent the centralization of power, we need our people on the front lines to be well trained going into that space. And this would effectuate that so that we can mitigate that centralization of oversight in our area. I hope that I'm happy to answer questions about any of that, but I think that will address a lot of the problems we're seeing come through UPAC. I think it will address a lot of the problems we see come into our text messages on our phones, and I think it will address the teacher concerns downline. Thank you.
I've got Vice Chair Bollinger, then Member Brinton.
Thank you, Chair. And these things that we see on this list, we absolutely want our administrators to be doing. My question would go back to, again, if I may address Dr. Height, because this is a preparation program, and when someone is trying to demonstrate competency, if they're not in charge of assigning responsibilities to staff in a preparation program because they're a teacher, or they're not responsible for supervising subordinates, or they're not responsible for implementing internal controls, would there be a concern in being able to show competency in this to pass through a admin program?
Dr. Height, please.
Thank you, Chair. This section would the addition of this section would require candidates to demonstrate each of these things in order to obtain their school leadership license. They would have to do it in a school with kids. Supervising subordinates as a school leader intern, you don't really have subordinates. I wonder if perhaps it's understanding. I don't know how to demonstrate something with subordinates if they don't have subordinates. But maybe working with employment. Yeah.
Member Bogus.
What would that? Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, if I could just piggyback on that. If that's the case, and I understand the concern, what if the language were understanding the supervision of subordinates and ensuring compliance with? And the second one would be understanding assigning responsibilities, understanding the documentation, and addressing, like, we put them all in that space of understanding, because these are things that you can demonstrate competency in and absolutely should be addressed in our preparation programs. So if that's the case, I'm happy to amend my own motion based upon her response.
Dr. Height.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If the intent is an understanding of these responsibilities and not actually see them do the skill, then it would come under the previous section, somewhere in lines 57 through 84. So that section is about the knowledge that we want candidates to have, that they demonstrate the understanding. This section here in line 134 is the clinical experience or the internship that they're doing in a school. That's the action and the skill that we want to be able to see.
Member Bogus.
Director Rasmussen question, if he's in the room. Is Director Rasmussen in the room? Director Rasmussen, with that feedback, what are your thoughts about, instead of line 134, putting this after line 84? If you could address that question for me, sir.
Dr. Height, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I believe that that makes more sense since these are things that we want candidates to understand, the knowledge that we want them to have and the understanding. That would be an appropriate place to add that language, to change it from 134 to 84.
Okay, so
As you're thinking about a potential motion, I've got member Lear, if you want to formulate a motion.
I would just make that motion to just change it without objection to line 84 after line 84.
A technical change, is that what?
It's not a technical change. There's no such thing, sir. And there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. Do we have to go through this
friendly.
again?
I was trying to remember the term that you used.
All right.
So, member Bogus, put your amendment forward, will you?
Oh, I move to strike line 134 and insert 84. I move to amend.
Okay, so the amendment, the motion to amend is to strike line 134 and replace it with 84. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's the only change? Okay.
Well, I believe, may I? Is that okay?
Well, let's see. Do we have a second? Okay, member Bogus?
So I believe that is what our staff has advised us to do, and that would mitigate any changes to the language, if I understand Dr. Height correctly. Please forgive me, but I believe that that's what our staff has advised.
Okay, so the motion then is to change 134 to 84 from the original motion from member Bogus. It's been seconded. She's spoken to that. I've got member Lear, Earl, and Green. Are we speaking to the line change or to the underlying motion? Okay. You are to the line change? Okay, and then member Earl, are you to the line change? Okay, so I've got you to the line change and then member Green.
I mean, without going back, I'm going to have to go back and look through all that. We just added internal controls. And so now we've got, we're duplicating. I guess I'm having some concerns that some of these revisions for us to be doing it on the fly without adequately looking through it and seeing where we're duplicating. We're just moving whole sections that add perhaps a great deal to a program. I don't know. I'm having a little bit of concern over this major revisions at this last minute. And yet there's some of these that I'm like, I think I want to make sure, is it already in there or not? Or does this just need to be more specific? So I guess I'm having some concerns over this. And I don't know if it's something that we need to delay and postpone till later this afternoon or something. I don't know, but I don't have these amendments. And then when we move it from one section to another, I'm just voicing my concern that I'm seeing we're now duplicating things in a section we just added things to.
Member Green.
I was just going to speak in favor of changing that to line 84. I think if it actually sits better in the rule. And I do think that it's a value add for the things that teachers or the school leadership preparation program could offer, and it would be beneficial. So I see it very relevant. I see it better placed in this spot, and I support that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got member Lear speaking to the other motion. Let's go ahead and vote on this line change here. The motion is to amend the amendment to change 134 to 84. Let's go ahead and vote. Thank you. That motion passes 11 in favor, 4 in opposition. Those opposed being member Davis, member Reel, member Hymas, and member Lear. We are to the amended motion then. And we've got Member Lear in line.
Thank you, Chair. My concern goes back several motions, but I'll make it again in relation to this motion. We have lines 76 and 77. Well, let me start with a different approach. These are standards that our office and Mr. Kellis in specific now is working with higher ed institutions that are training leaders and educators. And those are thoughtful discussions with them in their training program. And I think it's disrespectful and inappropriate for us to be throwing in for as a board, though we work with those higher ed institutions and are able to influence and even direct what those institutions provide for training, that it's disrespectful to just add pieces. It's similar to what Member Earl said, to add pieces of this because they we at least certain board members, and supported sometimes by a majority of the board, feel like there's a problem. I also object to the idea that there is chaos on the front lines. There is a crisis in public education regarding teachers. I don't think that's true at all. I think we have very strong teachers. I've just happened to spend last week a full day visiting schools in Granite School District. There's no crisis there. There are things that we can improve upon, and I don't like the fact that we use those rather inflammatory words toward our schools. But more specifically, again, respecting what the higher ed institutions do in their training programs, this lines 76 and 77 say, understanding the laws and legal ramifications surrounding school leadership decisions and practices. Every one of the last three amendments have been one of those defined in one of those areas. I don't think we need to say we really, really, really mean it. Or here are examples of what we mean. I think that we can, again, show respect for the partner we work with in developing these programs and list what we have in line 76 that says teachers are trained to follow the laws and understand the importance of following those laws. So I would again oppose this amendment, whether it's under the earlier section or the later section, because it's covered and we don't need to make a long rule longer. Thanks.
Thank you. I've got Member Bogus, Member Earl, and Member Brenton. Board members, I'd ask that we keep our comments brief. We do have a lot to do today, and we spent a lot of time on this rule. I don't know if you've, let's just keep that in mind. So again, Member Bogus, and then Member Earl, then Member Brenton.
Thank you. So I would just like to address the concern that this is on the fly. It's not on the fly. This was submitted a long time ago. It was prepared, and I was told we could not put it in backup. So it is what it is, but that was not my decision. And this goes in line. And these are things that clearly our frontline administrators don't know, because these are the things that we get complaints about all the time. So if we're not going to address the fact that we want to mitigate those complaints, we could mitigate our complaints by ensuring that they have these knowledge and skills. Because it seems to me that if we're getting complaints, the knowledge and skills don't exist. I do see Member Earl's point. I'll wait.
Who's driving this thing? Let's get our motion back up here. Thank you.
Thank you. I do see Member Earl's point that just passed. So this was developed with different members of our staff, and that, you know, the recommendation was made. We've changed that here in the boardroom. There's nothing that precludes us from amending this motion and undoing the previous motion so that we're not duplicative. There's nothing that precludes that, and I don't think it's fair and sporting to say that this is just some flippant thing. It's not. It's been well thought out. It's well articulated. Our staff did good work on this, and I think we need to see this to the finish line. Thank you.
Member Earl.
staff might have seen it, but as a board member, this is new to me. And so I would recommend, if we're going to do this, and I'm not necessarily in disagreement with any of these. I just want to make sure, once again, we're not duplicating, or we're not, do you know what I mean? That we're not, yeah, how it applies. I'm just not well versed on the recommended changes, the application in here. So I'm just, yeah, anyways, I might have a motion. Hold on. I'm just gonna make a motion that, do you have more amendments? Yeah, one. Okay, I would actually, I appreciate the safety component. I would actually be interested in having them demonstrate school safety protocols. I feel like but this deserves broader discussion, as been said. Maybe it's encompassed in the law itself. I just think if we're gonna be specific, let's have some narrative with the individuals that are engaging in this and get to where we need to be. So I'd make a motion that we send this back to law and licensing to look at recommendations and make sure it's vetted with our partners so that we can all be on the same page. Thank you.
There's a motion to refer this back to committee. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be the motion.
Okay, do we have a second? There's a second. Back to you, Member Earl.
I think I did speak to it. I just feel like some of these, I think there's components of this that I could get behind, but once again, I just don't know how it falls into the rule. I have no idea what the balance is, as I've read through it already. And then to have to go back and apply it in, I just think we could be duplicating. So I worry that we're overdone here. So thank you.
Member Brenton, and I know you had your light on. Is this to referring back to committee? This. Let's wait then. The motion is to refer back to committee. Member Davis.
I would support the motion to put this to committee to finesse all of this language and sections and where it goes, because some of these I didn't vote for because of one word. Like, how are we defining what is the reporting? What does this look like? What is the documentation? Or the word ensuring, and is that the right word, and things like that. So I would support some committee time on this as well.
So the motion before the board is, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Bollinger, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I would actually speak against this motion. I believe that, all of these things are important, but I believe that they're also encapsulated under understanding laws and legal ramifications. I do understand that maybe there's sometimes concerns about administrators in their practice, but I will tell you that's typically off of all of the new laws and policies that we're making on a regular basis. So for me, changing this in this rule doesn't address the concern, and it's more of a need for ongoing professional development for our current leaders. To keep up with case law and to keep up with the laws and rules is a hard thing to do, and I do think that there's some ways we can address that in improving our leadership trainings and ongoing professional development. But I believe that these things, and although I do believe that they're important, I also think that they're already addressed in this program expectations. And so I would speak against sending it back to committee.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board refer R277-305 back to committee. Let's vote. That motion fails. 8 against, 7 in favor. Those in favor being Member Longacre, Member Brenton, Member Green, Member Earl, Member Davis, Member Carey, and Member Bogus. That comes back to the motion that's on the floor, which is Member Bogus's motion as amended. And Member Brenton, did you wanted to speak to this?
Yeah, I've gotten some feedback recently from a school administrator who dropped out of the leadership program at the U a couple years ago because it was all a critical lens theory, and he didn't feel like he was getting any actual leadership training. So does this address that? I would love to see the leadership training programs that start at the university level that prepare them in higher ed to come be in our schools, be focused on the things that are impacting our students and not activism.
Not sure who that's directed to. Sure, to the maker of the motion. Let me get you.
So I appreciate the thought and the discussion, and I was supportive of it going back to committee so it could be worked through for that. But thank you.
Okay, to the maker of the motion, go ahead, Christina.
So, Member Brinton, I would just offer, I'm going to look at you here across the room. I would just offer that if our higher education is bent on creating activists, I don't know that we can preclude them from doing that, short of interfacing with USHE or the legislature. If they're bent on that, that's going to happen because they set their own coursework for completions of their programs, but they are required under this rule to have certain things in there to achieve a licensure with the state. And this would ensure that in the little time they have to complete those 30 to 36 credits, that these things are being addressed when these people are coming out of those programs. So I don't know that that's the answer you wanted, but these are the things that that we're seeing in our schools. They're the complaints that we're getting, the concerns that teachers have. And I think that we need to understand that. And I understand, if I just take a personal privilege, I understand Member Bollinger's concern that some of these things are ongoing updates to law, but some of them are just a basic understanding of things like consent. When a principal doesn't understand consent, that's a problem. They've got a master's degree and they've been awarded a license and they don't understand consent. I think that's an issue. I think it's a preparation program issue. If they don't understand parent rights in this state that have been in place for the better part of 2 decades, I think that's a preparation program problem. I would offer that if we are not addressing concerns in a timely manner and managing our staff well, which then forces UPAC to take it up because it's not being managed by the local LEA, I would call that a preparation issue. And I think that adding this would help our frontline people as they're coming out of these institutions to be prepared better for what they're going to face in the everyday reality of administrating a school. And so I do think it's important. I also supported it going back to committee. I think there's valid things there. I think that these things are an excellent addition, and I just would ask that we support the motion and help our administrators do better work when they're coming out and they're new administrators. I think they need to be better equipped. Thank you.
Member Lear.
Actually had the opportunity to teach for 20 years in a leadership preparation program through USU as an adjunct, so I wasn't deeply involved with the policy choices that the university made. But I can tell you, teaching one part of this leadership program, I covered about half the things that are in the laundry list today that is continually being added to. Actually, Member Bollinger was one of my students, and you see how well she turned out. So I really think that these leadership programs are doing a good job, just as we would all probably acknowledge. Just because we hear about kindness and respect and professionalism doesn't mean we don't fall short, which happens occasionally to leaders and teachers. So it's not that these leadership programs don't cover them. I think they do a really excellent job. I'm familiar most with USU, although I also taught a couple of courses for the U, and I taught for, I'm trying to remember, there was one other school that I taught for just briefly, but there is that teaching is going on in those programs. It doesn't mean that everyone leaves and acts perfectly. And I thought that the program, at least at USU, was excellent in that it did use practitioners to do that teaching. Many of the courses were taught by actual principals, vice principals. So they were very familiar with what happens in schools. I plead with you again, if this information should be explored with the leaders of those preparation programs. And that can happen with or without our votes or our addition of 2 pages of specific examples. I think that Malia is hearing what we're talking about today. Dr. Kellis is hearing what we're talking about today. I think there'll be discussions with those leadership programs, and I think that's as it should be, and not spend more of the board's time adding little pieces here and there that may or may not duplicate what's already in there or be covered by laws and legal ramifications.
Member Booth?
I spent a number of years as associate dean in a college at Brigham Young University with responsibility for the faculty who were conducting and organizing our preparation programs. These are good people, well qualified. I have a high level of confidence in their ability to provide the training that needs to be provided. I am also cognizant of the fact that that faculty that I led for a number of years resists dictation from a dean or a vice president or a provost or a state school board. It's not necessary. They're smart. If we have concerns, they can be communicated with them, and those concerns will be addressed. They're very quick to respond and to make sure that the program is preparing students to do what they need to do. So rather than dictating, I think our time would be better spent, as Board Member Lear mentioned, having a discussion or sharing with Dr. Haidt some of the concerns that have not been evidently addressed to the point that they get to the end of the row with our leaders and administrators that are being prepared for service in our schools. And rather than dictating in a rule, I think we can have a discussion and then let them come up with a brilliant way of preparing our future student administrators to do the job that they're being asked to do.
Member Green?
I would just say that part of having brilliant conversations is knowing first what we need to have a conversation about. I think that if we are seeing that there are areas that need to be addressed, that it's a simple ask and a smart move to address that and make it formal. I do see that these items would address things that are very important, relevant, and help the overall function of the school setting. I don't see adding something that these specifics is as being dictating. I would rather being visionary and making sure that we are supporting and providing lanes and avenues and resources and trainings that will help our future leaders lead, and they know what they need to lead in. So I would say it's okay to be specific sometimes, and I don't think it weighs us down. I think that that there are smart people that when they see a list, 4 more lines on a list, they know how to have that conversation. So I would just argue it does actually help address, the things in a very productive, leading way, not a dictatorial way, but rather leading, being visionary, being specific, and building upon those resources that we can by listing out what we need to do. Thank you.
Member Vargas, are you in the queue or is you speaking to this?
I'm happy to speak to it now.
Please.
I know you're excited. I just think if we're going to talk about inflammatory language, this is not 2 pages of amendments. It's a few lines, and so we need to be fair and sporting in that space. And so I think it needs to pass. I do realize we would need to move to reconsider the previous motion, which would probably pass without objection. But I do think this needs to pass. I think it's important that we get this to the finish line and that we have well-equipped people walking into these leadership positions, because at present, part of the reason they have no bandwidth is because they are not well prepared. This was a conversation that many board members attended at URSA. There was an entire forum on that subject, and the conversation was spirited and lively, and and it was neat to be a part of, but we do need to do better work in this area, and part of doing better work in this area is passing these amendments. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion before the board, if we can scroll a little bit down so I can see the full motion. Or up, sorry, other way. That's on me, right there. The motion is that the board insert after line 84, supervising subordinates and ensuring compliance in alignment with federal, state, and local law and policy through evaluation and oversight, assigning responsibilities to staff based on appropriate licensure, endorsements, and demonstrated competencies, documenting and addressing allegations or concerns in a timely manner consistent with applicable law and policy, and understanding and implementing internal control systems, data systems, including analysis, reliability, and retention, budgeting, and expending funds, and school safety drills. Let's vote. Okay, this fails. 10 opposed, 5 in favor. Those in favor being Member Brenton, Member Kelly, Member Longacre, Member Green, and Member Bogus. Member Bogus, back to you.
Sorry, I'm just waiting.
Is that your waiting? Are you waiting for the scroll to?
Yes,
Yeah.
Staff prepared the amendment, and I want to read it as they've prepared it.
Okay.
I move that the board add after line 84, quote, and required verification with prior, Malia. You maybe that's not what you intended to, maybe that didn't make it to the finish line. Please accept my apologies. I was pretty certain that the staff had worked this out. I apologize.
That's fine with me, Member Bogus. Does that work?
You do want it to go in 134? And okay. So then it would stand as written. I move that the board add after line 134 and required verification with prior employers as outlined in section 53G-11-410. And then I believe in context, it's been written there by our wonderful policy team.
Sure. Do we have a second for that motion? We have a second. So go ahead, Member Bogus. You want to speak to that?
I think it's clear. It's just, how do I want to say this? I think this addresses some of the issues that we've seen play out in the press, and I could text you all very specific school examples, or I can, go ahead and vomit them onto the public record. But this has been something that's not happening in our schools. It needs to happen, and that verification with prior employers would prevent a lot of the issues that we're seeing play out in the press today. Thank you.
So the motion before the board is that the board add after line 134 and required verification with prior employers as outlined in section 53G-11-410. Member Earl, are you speaking to this, or are you in the queue? Okay, go ahead.
I have maybe a legal question. Help me if I'm right. This is a training program, right? This is a higher ed program. Are these principles in practice? I'm just saying, if you're asking them to have to verify and actually go through and find the data on a hiring, can they do that? Can they call on I'm just wondering if they're not actually the principal at the school. Does that make sense? Or is it the principal at the school and they're going through the training? It's usually a candidate that's going through the training to become a principal. And I'm just worried about, can they legally then do this?
So I don't know who that's directed to.
Well,
Member,
maybe one of our AGs. I don't know.
do you want
You want me to try again?
yeah.
Okay, so my understanding is that these are candidates for leadership, right? For principalship. Can they be required for verification to reach out to previous employers when they're not actually doing the hiring? Does that make sense? But they're having to demonstrate it here. Here they have to demonstrate doing it, which means they would have to. It's not just a awareness; it's demonstration. So they'd actually have to be calling the.
We do have a response from Member Bogus who put the motion forward. So Member Bogus, go ahead while they're deliberating back there.
So as this is written, they already are calling applicants and screening applicants. So if they're already demonstrating that, this is just the next logical step. Most of these individuals are on some sort of an agreement or a pseudo employment agreement, which covers student privacy, employee privacy, and all of the things, because they do mock observations. They turn those into their supervisors. So all of those things are already in place. So demonstrating this falls right in line with the other skills. If they're calling applicants and talking about how to, they're demonstrating their capacity to reject a candidate from a position, this is just in that line of succession. So if they're participating in those activities, it would be logical to say that this would just follow and that they're covered with those. I don't know, our legal team can tell us, I would call them pseudo employment agreements. These people sign an agreement that talks about how this practicum plays out in real time, and they cover all the privacy issues with employees and students, etc. I don't know if that fully answers Member Earl's question, but I hope so.
I understand what you're saying. I just don't know if. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Member Davis while they're still seeking clarity. Member Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is already required. I couldn't as a principal hire somebody without doing this. So every single person that I hired had to have these checks. So just want to make sure that it's that's clear that I think that is required. And you did note a code in there too. I don't know it necessarily needs to be added. Just want to make it clear that it is already there.
Thank you. AAG Beal.
Yeah, so in discussion with Dr. Height and Deputy Superintendent Newey, we just want to clarify that this is a competency. So it's not necessarily that these folks are going to have to do this. They have to prove that they're capable of doing it, right? So they could be given, here's 10 applications. They have to prove that they are capable of doing those things, but not that they necessarily have to be doing them. It's a competency standard.
Okay. So the motion before the board is that the board add after line 134 and required verification with prior employers as outlined in section 53G-11-410. Let's vote. That motion fails. 8 opposed, 7 in favor. Those in favor being Vice Chair Bollinger, Member Longacre, Member Kelly, Vice Chair Wood, Member Bogus, Member Hall, and Member Green. Okay, this brings us to our underlying motion. Member Earl, go ahead.
Yeah, I do appreciate Board Member Bogus's that that idea of being within the safety realm. So I try to put something just real simple, demonstrating school safety protocols, which would be, those protocols that we've been developing over the last few years. Oh, yeah, that's like a second.
So, yeah, thank you. Thank you. So the motion is that the board insert after line 134. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
L, demonstrating safety protocols, has been seconded. Member Earl, please.
Yeah, I just think this is an area where I think we'll see more emphasis over the years, and I think to begin with this in mind, I think is a good thing, and to show some of those competencies.
Thank you. Member Carey.
If I may, Chair, to Dr. Height. So, Dr. Height, do we want them to demonstrate school safety protocols or demonstrate an understanding of school safety protocols? Or none of the above?
Dr. Height, please.
Thank you. It would be at the will of the board. The amendment at this point would be demonstrating it in a school with students that they could actually provide, like run the school safety protocols to ensure that students are safe. The knowledge would be under the previous section under 84. So it would be at the will of the board.
And Chair, if I may. So, Dr. Height, given your familiarity with these programs, is that a fair or realistic expectation as part of this program?
Thank you. Through the chair. I think it's reasonable. I think it's very broad. School safety protocols is as simple as don't run with scissors, for example. But it also could be running the monthly fire drills.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Member Kelly.
Yeah, I'll, Board Member Carey, just maybe something that may help. When I did my administrative endorsement, fire drills would be, I think, right along these lines, and I would say that I was assisting the assistant principal who was in charge of safety in that school. I was assisting that assistant principal in those drills in terms of, organizing where students go, how teachers report back that the students have been accounted for, and some of those procedural things. So I would say demonstrating it is something that's easy for somebody going through this program to show.
Member Lear.
And this is a question, excuse me, maybe for Member Earl, who studied the safety issues more than I have. But I'm wondering if that training, do you know if that training is already required, is currently required of school leaders and teachers in that 50-page safety bill?
Member Earl.
Under the competencies? I didn't see it under the competencies.
No, I mean, not under, it wouldn't be competencies in the safety
Oh,
bill.
I don't know.
I vaguely recall that extensive training is required, and I'm assuming that maybe I'm asking
Now,
you.
But once again, is this not, someone's going to have to clarify for me, is this not a higher ed component that where we're teaching these individuals? This isn't you're in an administrative position and now you're going to practice the drills.
It actually can be some of both. So. Sometimes you have some people who are in assistant principals positions. Sometimes you have teachers training to be administrators. You have a cross section of a lot of students. But my point is more, and I don't need to ask it in a Socratic way. I can say, it seems to me, because some of these protocols are new and are recently focused upon, and that there will be training in schools, in leadership programs. And I feel like it's already adequately required, is my point. It's another thing that we're saying we really, really mean that you follow the laws and requirements that are laid out in the Utah Code.
Thank you. I think she spoke to it because they are new, and I think it is something that they need to be focused on and retained. So,
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. If I may direct this question to Dr. Height. I just want to go back to the whole question of if there's a redundancy. So on line 57, it says require the demonstration of competency in, and then down on line 79, it talks about ensuring a safe environment. And then it also talks about on line 76, understanding the laws and legal ramifications surrounding school leadership decisions and practices. So my question is, would that be requirement? Is this a redundancy from those lines that, I mean, when I read those, I already think that they have to cover these safety protocols and they have to cover all the laws that any administrator is responsible for. So I see it as a redundancy, but I just want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding that interpretation.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the section that starts in the previous, I wish it was organized a little differently. The part that is in line 79, ensuring a safe environment, that's knowledge that we want candidates to demonstrate as part of their preparation program. Where the board member Earl's amendment would be demonstrating the skill within a school. So they are distinct in that way. And I would have to look to see if there's another section about school safety for the in the school portion, the internship.
Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the board insert after line 134, L, demonstrating school safety protocols. Let's vote. That motion passes 12 in favor, 3 opposed, those opposed being Member Reel, Member Booth, and Member Lear. Okay, this brings us to our underlying motion. And that is, let me see here, that the board approve R277-305 School Leadership License Areas of Concentration and Programs, Draft 1 as amended on second and final reading. Let's vote. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Chair Carey, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. The next matter before the board is item 4.4, R277-731, Catalyst Center Grant Program Policy. This is marked as a new matter. And the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-731, Catalyst Center Grant Program Policy, Draft 2, on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion that came out of committee is that the board approve R277-731, Catalyst Center Grant Program Policy, Draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Hall.
Motion, if that's okay.
It's in order, please.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that the board refer R277-731 back to committee to discuss during special meeting prior to the full November board meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Do you want to speak to that, Member Hall?
I'll just be real quick. There were some things that were brought to our attention about this that we need to take back and work on a little bit. And so we're hoping for the opportunity to be able to do that and bring back something really, really good.
Sure. I've got some lights. I'm just going to ask for some clarity as well. We talked about a special meeting. So is this not referring back to our standard committee meeting in November?
No, sir. This would be a special meeting that will allow it to come before the board in November so that it could go into effect in December. If not, it wouldn't be till January of 2026 that this would go into effect.
Member Carey?
Yeah. Well, Chair, did you want to? No, you got it. Just on that. Oh, yeah. So, Member Hall, that motion was on the vague side of the spectrum. So if we could have a little bit more information on, and I understand sometimes you can't talk about conversations that were had, but the information that you received, you feel it's in the best interest of the board and the program to have that remanded back to law and licensing. Is that correct? And you're also requesting that we hold a special meeting to accommodate the remand. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Felt like Rod was on trial a little bit.
I know.
Did you feel that, Rod?
I felt it.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's right.
Yeah, did you feel that, Rod? Is that correct? Yeah. No, I'm just, you're good. Superintendent Hart, please.
Yeah, and I understand that, special meetings makes it sound, I don't know, ominous in some sort of way, but I would just say that I would appreciate the special meeting. Doesn't have to be long. The problem with not doing it in a special meeting means it would be delayed way too far out for our LEAs to be able to respond to a grant. I think that more and more we're having these special meetings aren't so special when we're having them every month. So I do think it's a matter of workload and just managing workload. I also appreciate that we would be able that we aren't having the protracted conversation here so that we can make sure that we get to what right is on this. It's a new program. It's very innovative, and we want to make sure that we get it right. And it has moving parts in it. So I also too would just appreciate the opportunity to have a meeting and talk about it and bring it back. Thank you.
Yeah, just clarity. This would go back to Law and Licensing Committee for a special meeting. Yeah. Yeah. Member Brenton, go ahead.
I just want to speak in favor of this. I was looking at this last night, and with the code that was put in place, I think there are some things that there's gaps that need to be addressed to make sure that this is done correctly. And I like the expediency that we get it done as quick as possible so that the LEAs can access the grant money. So I'm in favor of this.
And Member Lear.
Chair Freudian there. Chair Hart mentioned the word grant, which gave me pause, and I always want to facilitate not chair, even superintendent. Oh my gosh, you've been promoted twice within that statement. Superintendent Hart mentioned grant, and I always want to give every opportunity to have grants reach the classroom. But you also used the word ominous, and I would say expensive. I don't see the need for an extra meeting unless people really, really, really promise to attend. But I also think we could maybe add it as an emergency item in tomorrow's 4-hour Law and Licensing Committee. Could we not do that? Is that possible? There's an opportunity to, you're not ready, or if it's necessary, if it's urgent, what's another half an hour? Pardon me? There's an emergency provision in that act that says if it just came to Member Hall's attention, which he said it was last night, then that means, and it's urgent for our LEAs to get grants, then let's put it on tomorrow's meeting and be done with it and not take money that could otherwise go to the classroom or for these grants maybe.
Member Hall.
I would just say it's definitely not ready, so we would need some more time.
Okay. So the motion before the board then is that the board refer R277-731 back to the Law and Licensing Committee to discuss during a special meeting prior to the full November board meeting. Let's vote. Thank you. That motion passes, 13 in favor, 2 opposed, those opposed being Vice Chair Wood and Member Bogus. Back to you, Chair Carey.
Thank you, Chair. The next item before the board is item 4.5, UPAC rules. And Chair, a point of information. I notice on our working agenda that it says motion for the board none. However, it was noticed as an action item, and it also does capture Member Lear's motion that was made and passed by the board. So there is a motion out of committee, but the designation says motion for the board none, when that is not the case.
Chair Carey, can we clarify as well? We've got 2 of those, and I don't want to combine agenda items, but if you look at agenda item 5, it's also Law and Licensing Committee report, no motion for the board. It's on the same UPAC rules. Is it okay with the board if I've got the same thing. Was there another motion that came out of that committee, or which committee are we looking at? Which motion are we looking at? Let's just get some clarity.
Yeah.
So board members, if you please, let's take 5 minutes and make sure we just get this right, especially Chair and Vice Chair, Chair Carey and Vice Chair Bollinger. Let's make sure we get this right. So 5 minutes to saunter, please. Board members, let's go ahead. Thank you to the public for allowing us to do that. And if you didn't allow us, thank you anyway, because we did it. But let's go ahead and get board members back in their seats. And I'd like to have, I know we're finishing up some conversations. I'd like to have your attention because we're going to do something that typically doesn't happen in the past. We're going to look at 2 agenda items and combining them into one. So if we can, and when we're ready, I'm going to turn time back over to Chair Carey. Again, for the public's understanding, we are at the end of agenda item 4.5, and agenda item 5, and 5.2 specifically, is strongly related to 4.5. So Chair Carey, please.
Thank you, Chair. So because of the relationship between 4.5 and 5.2, I'd like to make a motion that those matters be combined for the board's discussion today.
Is there any is there a second to that? We have a second. Is there any opposition to combining those same topic agenda items? I've got lights on, but I'm not sure if it's for that. Raise your hand if there's opposition to a question about combining the 2. Okay, Member Lear, go ahead. We'll do questions and then we'll go into vote.
I may have been a lazy listener, but I would like you to repeat what items, you keep saying items are being combined. Which items again? Are you talking about all these rules, or are you talking about something else?
Thank you, Member Lear. It would be all items. It would be combining 4.5 and 5.2.
And I'm in a different spot. Just give me a minute, please, and let me get back.
Which
So
both
say
refer
those,
to UPAC rules.
So it would be 4.5, and what's the other one?
5.2. It's on the board in front of us as well.
No, I'm not seeing it. Anyway, okay. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Other lights for this motion, Member Bogus, to this motion, Member Reel to this motion? Okay. Is there any opposition to combining these agenda items? Seeing none, back to Chair Carey, or is it Vice Chair Bollinger? Help me remember. Vice Chair Bollinger, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we spent a lot of time talking about these different rules, and in our committee, we did have a motion. The committee shared the discussion with board leadership and recommend an establishment of working group. So I would like to make a motion that the board approve. So just at the beginning of that motion, we'll add in that the board approve that the committee share the committee discussion with board leadership and recommend establishment of a working group to review UPAC rules. So that encapsulate, I'm sorry, I'll wait for a second. Oh, actually, I don't have to. Do I have to get a
No.
second if it came from
No,
committee?
this is what came out of committee.
Yeah, we just missed the words that the board approved that the committee share was why it had said no action. So this is the motion that I would like to make.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board approve that the committee share the committee discussion with board leadership and recommend establishment of a working group to review UPAC rules. And I am going to go to Chair Carey.
Chair, I have a substitute motion, and I believe that's been queued up by staff. And then I would like to speak to the motion when the chair is ready.
Let's go ahead and put it out there if you'd like and make
So-
sure it's correct.
Yes, the substitute motion is that the board direct the Law and Licensing Committee to study the processes and systems of UPAC, identify strengths and weaknesses, and provide a comprehensive report with recommendations to board leadership by May 30th for determination of next steps.
The motion's been stated. Do we have a second? Go ahead, Member Carey, Chair Carey.
Yeah, and having gone through the UPAC process in terms of law and licensing, it seems like since February or March, with the different iterations of the UPAC rules, the ones that have been brought by various board members, it did provide the opportunity for the committee in general and myself in particular to really take a look at UPAC. And the best analogy I could come up with is that UPAC is a 10-mile race, and the board gets involved in the last 100 yards of that race, and we do that in executive session. And what we don't really do well is the first 9.99 miles of that race. And as I've shared this before, but when I used to sit next to Superintendent Dixon at that end of the table in executive session, on more than one occasion, she would always refer to our UPAC licensure oversight as the board's superpower. And I asked her, I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, your UPAC decisions can't be overturned by the governor. They can't be overturned by the legislature. That is your sole power. And if someone doesn't like the resolution of our UPAC determination, they go to the court, and they don't come in like at the first level. They go to the appellate division. So in many ways, this body is that first trial court for every individual that comes before us. And that's a heavy responsibility. And as I looked at it, I went to the rules and I noticed that we really don't have one rule governing the UPAC panel in terms of our expectations of ethics, professionalism, conflict of interest, or privacy. So I spoke to the folks at UPAC and I said, can I see the conflict of interest policy that UPAC has? And UPAC doesn't have a specific conflict of interest policy for its panelists. I asked to see our privacy policy that would relate to the members who sit on that committee. And when it comes to UPAC, I know that we take that seriously because we go into executive session to discuss it. And I know that, we're not permitted to discuss it outside of executive session. So I was taken aback when I heard that there is no specific policy over UPAC in terms of privacy or conflict of interest. But I want to make this clear. I don't think that is a failure of UPAC. I think it's a failure of the board to exercise general control and supervision over UPAC. And that's on our end. But then I found out we have these educators under the same presumption that everyone else is, that they're innocent, right? I mean, there's an accusation, there's an allegation, but that has to be proven. But sometimes, because the way our process is outlined, Teachers have to hire counsel, hire lawyers, spend thousands of dollars, perhaps tens of thousands of dollars, getting documentation that they need to exonerate themselves when I thought the presumption was one of innocence or non-malfeasance. And it just strikes me as wrong that an educator should be put in the position of, well, there's an allegation, but go to court, hire a lawyer, so you can get the documents that you need to demonstrate that you didn't do anything wrong. That strikes me as wrong. And some districts, and I've asked many of you, what your district policy is. Educators can't come into UPAC sometimes because of a non-disclosure agreement. Or even worse, what's known as a subpoena-only non-disclosure agreement. So UPAC will call them in and they're like, I can't say anything because I'm under this non-disclosure agreement and I don't want to be sued by the district. How are they supposed to defend themselves? How are they supposed to speak in their behalf when they are under an agreement that proscribes or limits their ability to do so? That is not right. And again, these are provisions that UPAC has struggled as a body to address within itself with little or more likely no guidance from this body. So I look at those things and I'm like, it's not a system of fairness to the educator. So I'm making this motion because I think that the board would benefit greatly from having a deeper understanding of the process, what actually happens for that first 9.9 miles. And law and licensing will generate that report by speaking with members of UPAC, by calling individuals that the committee considers necessary to generate the report. And then, as it says, we'll report back no later than May 30th. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I've got 3 lights on. Let me restate the motion here. And the motion is that the board direct the Law and Licensing Committee to study the process and systems of UPAC, identify strengths and weaknesses, and provide a comprehensive report with recommendations to board leadership by May 30th, I'm assuming 2026, for determination of next steps. And could we just add the year just so this does not get drawn out? Are you okay with that, Member Carey? Sorry. I've got Member Bogus, Reel, Kelly, and Davis. So Member Bogus, go ahead.
I have nothing to say about this at this time.
Okay.
I'm in the queue for a motion.
Member Reel.
Thanks, Chair. I've been thinking about this because we've spent the amount of times I've pulled up these rules to review them in the months meetings that we've had, from being in law and licensing to being in the full board, then back to law and licensing. And I've prepared, I've done my research, I read all of the rules, I saw all of the different drafts proposed, and we just recently made a vote to send something else back to committee. And I started thinking about the efficiency of this board. And honestly, it's a little bit embarrassing that we've gotten to the point that it's gone back and forth between the full board and then back to committee, and that we can't find a way to work through these. And also, it's really inefficient for us to be asking staff to attend more meetings and have extra meetings, not even to mention that we're getting paid in those meetings. And so, for me, it feels like we're getting to the point where we are, as a board, governing too much. This is a great example of this. We are now going from, we couldn't figure out the rules. UPAC's been around for 30 years. We can't figure out the rules. And now we're going to make a committee, which, by the way, I work in higher education. It is the favorite. They love making committees for everything, right? So I understand, but now we're going to make a committee to look through this. And so I'm just curious, Chair, Law and Licensing Chair Carey, was the last extra meeting helpful? Did it provide clarity? What kind of conversations did you have that brought you to this in your last committee meeting, that extra one you had?
Yeah, thank you. I would say it's cumulative. The one thing that really caught my attention was the testimony that was given before admin rules. Re-
Sorry, there's a point of order not to discuss the hearing. Hopefully we're not reporting or commenting on necessarily what was spoken at the hearing, but maybe a process concern.
Yeah, and I appreciate the objection, but it was about, not the
Clarify, I'm wondering what happened in the conversation, the extra committee meeting. I'm wondering what happened in your extra committee meeting, if you could clarify that conversation that you had.
I think it was just cumulative, right? So you learn things every step along the way. And my final conclusion was just that we have a system that I believe puts our educators behind the 8 ball when they enter the UPAC process. And look, if someone does an offense, right, they should be held accountable. But they should not have to pay for documents. They should not have to worry about hiring a lawyer to see how they can get out of a non-disclosure agreement so they can defend themselves. That's unfair. So, but again, if you were to say, hey, what was that seminal moment that you said, hey, this all has to change? That has been a process that has occurred over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Follow up, Sarah?
No.
And I think what I'm hearing from this motion, I'm not speaking in favor or against, this motion is saying to study the process and systems, which, if I'm interpreting correctly, is to gain a better understanding to answer these questions, whether somebody is an educator is behind the 8 ball or not. We just don't know yet. When I say we, I mean this is where the motion is coming from. That's what I'm hearing. Chair, yeah. Okay. I've got Member Kelly, Member Davis, Member Lear, and then Member Bogus. So Member Kelly.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for the maker of the motion, just to kind of clarify. Your motion would then send it back to law and licensing. Would only law and licensing committee members be involved in that process?
I would look at it as any other matter that comes before a committee. So we would hold a regular committee meeting. One of the reasons I wanted to send it to committee is because it would force it to be public. So these discussions would be out in the open. I know sometimes it's preferred and sometimes warranted that they're not. But because this impacts every licensed educator in the state, I thought this should be open to them. And certainly if attendance would always be open, but participation in the sense of, I want to be on the committee, I want to speak to these things, that would be at the discretion of the committee.
So does the motion send this back to the law and licensing committee to create a committee to study the processes and systems, or will it be the law and licensing committee that studies the processes and systems of UPAC?
I understand. I apologize. I understand your question. It would be the Law and Licensing Committee.
Okay.
Member Davis?
I guess I was a little bit confused at the substitute nature of the motion, because it sounds like this is saying in lieu of the working group, which I thought was a really good recommendation coming out of committee. Would this be in lieu of a working group?
I believe that's directed to you, Chair Carey.
Thank you. Board Member Davis, that was something that I thought, well, do I just incorporate that into the body of the motion? But I spoke with a board member prior to today, but before the meeting started, about, well, would we be able to call outsiders, individuals outside of UPAC, stakeholders, interested parties? And the answer to that was absolutely, right? Like, let's do all the research to get a comprehensive report on the processes and systems. And then after we do that, this goes back to board leadership for determination of next steps. So I don't look at it as in lieu of. I look at it as that could take place during this period where the report is being written, as we call different individuals to get this better understanding. But also it could come at the end of the process if board leadership should make that determination.
Just a quick follow-up. I mean, my thought is that the two don't need to be mutually exclusive. I mean, I could see the committee submitting a variety of research to the working group made up of a variety of stakeholders. So I was hoping there was a way that those two combined there, but because I'd prefer that than in lieu of a working group of stakeholders.
Member Lear?
I was the board member that asked Member Carey what his expectation was for what the committee would look like and what the committee's work would be. And I just want to stress, he answered it in a way that I'm very comfortable with, but I want to stress the fact that 5 committee members will not be able to explore adequately the UPAC issues, though, as Sarah says, it's gone back and forth, and we've had multiple opportunities to maybe do this same thing, but we will not be able to explore those concerns unless we do invite other people who've been part of the process. And let me just list a few. Attorneys on both sides of the issue in a UPAC proceeding. Some of the hearing officers who've participated in the past, who've sat through long hearings and can tell you about the deliberations of the members, former UPAC members, who are now more at liberty to talk about not individual cases, not individuals, but more how comprehensive, how satisfactory was the process. And even perhaps some former UPAC sanctioned and board sanctioned educators who are often willing to say this was a really good process, or why in the Sam Hill did it take so long, or some other things like that. So I just want to stress the fact that I would support this if it's not a committee sitting a few ledges above just looking down and telling them how smart we are, but rather that we invite the people who participate on the ground and have for 30 plus years to give us more information about these procedures and which ones have been productive and which ones are really problematic.
Member Bogus?
It's for something else, yeah.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board direct the Law and Licensing Committee to study the process and systems of UPAC, identify strengths and weaknesses, and provide a comprehensive report with recommendations to board leadership by May 30th, 2026 for determination of next steps. Let's vote. That motion passes, 13 in favor, 2 in opposition, those opposed being Member Reel and Member Wood. Chair Carey, back to you.
Chair, I believe that is the full report from the Law and Licensing Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Bogus?
I move that we postpone the consideration of R277210 until next month's board meeting.
There's a motion, and this comes, I'm not sure where 210 is on the, help me understand why that would be in order.
It's an action item under both of those.
I see. Okay. So you want to restate your motion, please.
I move that we postpone consideration of R277-210 draft 6 to next month's board meeting.
Let's see. The motion is to move consideration of R277-210 to next month's board.
Draft 6.
Draft Draft 6, thank you, to next month's board meeting. Do we have a second? There's a second. Member Bogus, go ahead to speak to that.
So we've had now 11 board members submit amendments to that, but I think we need 30 days to continue to flesh it out and then finish it next month. So that would just be the thing.
Okay, Member Carey?
Yeah, just to the extent that that item is encompassed by 4.2 or 5.2, excuse me, 4.5 or 5.2, I guess just a point of information, wouldn't that be subsumed in the motion that we just passed?
I believe so. That's why I'm trying to understand where this would come from, because it's not it's not an option currently. Member Bogus?
Guys, it's not subsumed in the motion because rules, the processes and systems are distinct and separate from your teacher standards. So the motion itself did not include teacher standards. Processes and systems are different rules. They're distinct and separate. So if the intent was to encompass it, that didn't actually happen.
Point of information, is that what's happening here? I've got Member Earl and then Member Carey. Or Member Earl, go ahead.
Yeah, I would object to the consideration of the question. I feel like not only is it already, well, anyways, I don't know if someone has second that, but I object to the consideration of the question at this point.
There's an objection to the consideration. It's been seconded.
Yeah,
Member
not
Earl.
only, yeah, we just passed rules recently, but this actually speaks to the very thing that in going and evaluating that, going back through the rules, what we're looking at, and yes, this is part of UPAC. Yes, this is part of what's going on, and trying to make sure that we're looking at the full gamut of things. And I think that the tape, allowing those things to be considered, but I think there's been a thorough vetting, and I think at this point, I don't think it just, okay, next month we'll move something on, and then the next month we'll move it on again. I just object to the consideration at this point.
Okay, Member Bogus.
So I would disagree. It's not encompassed in the motion. And if that was the intent, then we need to reconsider the motion.
So,
Because it's distinct and separate. Processes and systems is not the same as educator standards.
so there's a, help me get my feet on this, on the ground here. Member Earl, you made a substitute motion, or I don't even know. Help me out with process here. You're saying you object. It's been seconded. It's before the body now. So the vote then is going to be to object to the motion that Member Bogus brought forward, that the board move consideration of R277-210 draft 6 to next month's board meeting. So the motion is to object to this. Are we ready to vote? It looks like it. Let's go ahead and vote.
No, I have a comment.
Oh, your light's on. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think we should, first of all, it's out of line to object to this. It's duly noticed. It's on the agenda. It's been published. And these things have been in motion in public since April. And if our staff could very quickly, could you bring up the 604 code under UPAC and put it on the screen, please? Thank you. Could you make that just a little bit larger? Under line number 1, it says that we are to adjudicate educators who are unfit for duty because they've exhibited behavior that is immoral, unprofessional, or incompetent, and then or violates standards of ethical conduct, performance, or professional competence. And we are not in compliance with code in these areas in any way, shape, or form.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, we're trying to look at Robert's rules. We're trying to look at systems here or processes.
Mm-hmm.
It says, help me out, Vice Chair Wood. to, let's see, the motion is not, let's see, hold on. The motion to object is non-debatable and requires a 2/3 vote in the negative against consideration to succeed. So where we are now is we have a motion to object. It's non-debatable, and we need 2/3 of that to, in order to move forward, move on, I should say. The motion is not, it says the motion is not debatable and requires a 2/3 vote in the negative, which is against consideration. So essentially what we're doing is we're stopping debate on this motion that Member Bogus has put before us. And in order to stop debate and finalize, it's almost like a call to question, right? Except for we're taking care of the vote and debate all in one. Is that what I'm hearing? So the motion then is to whatever Member Earl said.
It can only be done on a main motion. But if the main motion is coming for the body and it's been through committee, anyways, I don't need to debate that out, but consideration of the question at this point, I don't think is appropriate. So.
Okay. So
point of order.
Sure.
You can object to the consideration when consideration is not on the table. The motion is to postpone consideration. So it's a moot objection.
It's a main motion. An original main motion can be you can object to the consideration of that motion.
My apologies. I need 5 minutes. AAGBL, can we just get this worked out so we can get this moving forward? We're going to spend more time helping me understand than we are to vote. So just a few minutes, board members, if you please. Board members, thank you for your patience as we try to work this out. I know it took a few minutes, but I believe it might save us a lot more time. So let's go ahead and grab our seats. We want to make sure we have everybody's attention for this so that we understand what we are voting or not voting for. So we have, as we've discussed with our legal team, we've found that both Member Earl's and Member Bogus's motions are out of order at this time. There is nothing to, there's no consideration before the body to be postponed. And so with that, we don't have anything to postpone yet. And we don't have anything to not consider yet. And so I'm going to so right now we are at the space where Board Member Carey's substitute motion passed regarding these agenda items. And now we've got Member Bogus and do you want to continue, Member Bogus? It's up to you to decide if you want to bring something forth for consideration. And then we can go from there. Otherwise, we will move on to agenda item 6. Sure. Okay.